Hello, magicians and mentalists from India. My name is Steve Faulkner, and I've just had a lovely conversation with Bharath for his YouTube channel, Mallugic. We talk about life and the challenges of life and how that, of course, can affect our development as magicians and as human beings. So I hope you get something out of it. It's maybe a little bit different to some of the conversations you've heard, but that's not a bad thing. So take care and see you soon.
Hello, sir.
How you doing? Nice to
I'm
see you,
doing good.
Bharath.
Yeah, like what about you? How are you?
Good. Yeah, really good. Really good. It's good. I managed to have I got my kids at the moment. I keep forgetting the kids on at school. It's holidays, and so thank you, because we were going to be doing this later, right? And I was like, oh my God, I forgot I got the kids. So
Yeah,
thanks.
okay. So, guys, ഇതാണ് സ്റ്റീവ് ഫോക്നർ. അപ്പോൾ പുള്ളിക്കാരൻ 20 വർഷത്തിൽ കൂടുതൽ മാജിക് ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്, മജീഷ്യനാണ്, പിന്നെ പേഴ്സണൽ ഡെവലപ്മെന്റ് ട്രെയിനറും പിന്നെ ലീഡർഷിപ്പ് ട്രെയിനറൊക്കെ ആണ്. അപ്പോൾ എന്തായാലും നമുക്ക് പുള്ളിയോട് തന്നെ ചോദിക്കാം പുള്ളി എന്തൊക്കെയാണ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. So yeah, I was actually telling about you to my subscribers in my native language, so don't worry. So yeah, tell us about yourself. Like, who are you? I mean, what you do basically.
Yeah. Okay. How long have you got? I've got to make sure it doesn't just drag on, because it can get a bit boring, 'cause there's lots of different bits. So I started as a street performer many years ago in the late 90s in London, Covent Garden. Went to circus school, was a street performer for probably over 10 years, professionally every day. And then got into magic, the magic side of things. Long story short, I moved up to the north of England, wanted to become a magician and not a street performer anymore. So did a lot of training, sat with, Roberto Jobbi's Card College, 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day, just learned everything I could. And then started doing magic. And now I perform after dinner shows, obviously close up, and host my own show here in Sheffield in the UK. The last 7-8 years, I've also been a leadership trainer, so I help people with personal development and coaching and things like that. Sometimes around magic, sometimes not. And I also now, well, most of my time is spent on my YouTube channel and my card magic course. So YouTube channel is Real Magic Review, which is reviewing products. And the reason I started that was to just keep me learning. So I try and review books as well, so it makes me accountable. I've got to keep learning, keep up to date, and keep my brain going. And the card magic course is something I started in 2013 because I was seeing lots of stuff on YouTube, lots of great stuff, but lots of bad stuff, teaching badly. And I thought, well, I do this, so I want to teach it. So that was kind of a legacy thing. So I relaunched that and started rebuilding it a couple of years ago. And now there's over kind of 300 videos, and I add to it every month, and it's now a monthly rolling thing. So that's kind of my focus now because of lockdown, which is good. It's made me kind of go, right, that's what I want to do long term. Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing a great thing. I mean, it can help. Like, you're doing like two things in in the same way. I mean, teaching magic, card magic course to the magicians and all, and also at the same time personal development things to the people out there, right? And I think it's really a great thing that you are doing in this lockdown period.
Yeah, it's just the two things do marry, because people always say, well, how does a magician become a trainer, etc. But it's all about, the reason I was really bad with a deck of cards, or I wasn't one of the people who picks it up easily. I was really struggled. And the same with, I used to be well, I still am, but juggling was my thing before magic, and I couldn't catch, so it took me longer than most people. And the only thing that helps with that stuff is the developmental stuff, is the mindset and the way you approach things. We've all got the same ability, but it's how we overcome those challenges. And I think with magic, it's really important. So some of the stuff on the course is about that, how to practice, how to get the most out of your practice, but also with how we feel. If we don't feel good and we're struggling, we're not going to practice. We're not going to develop our magic or anything. So I think the two things are really important.
Yeah, that's right. So today, actually, I decided to ask questions regarding personal development, stuffs instead of magic side. Okay, anyway, I will ask a few questions about magic, but most of the questions will be like about personal development stuffs. Okay, so with that said,
cool.
Let's get started. So let's start the session. So let me ask you this: most of the okay, I'm talking not just about magicians, but also many other people. But let's say the example of magicians. Okay, many magicians out there who are really hardworking a lot, really putting out stuffs, creating magic, spending their life, and they breathe magic, for 24 hours. They're putting their entire life on magic, and they are not getting the proper result. I mean, few are getting, but not all of them. Not all of them are getting the right result not all of them are getting the right exposure. And so because of that, many magicians got used to get depressed, used to get mentally down, just
Yeah.
because that they are not, because they use their full potential and they are not getting the right things in return. So at that time they used to get depressed. So what's your best advice you can give to the people like that, when they use their full potential and they don't get the result and they go mentally down? So what's the best advice you can give to them?
Yeah, well, there's lots of different reasons that can happen. So I can give you an example of myself. So when I moved to the north of England, I was doing the odd magic gig. I had an agent in London that would get me little bits and pieces, maybe a little bit of magic, bit of juggling, and I was getting down because I wasn't getting the work. The agent wasn't getting me the work. Okay, so I remember exactly the time. I just moved up here. I was sitting in my living room, and I said to my wife at the time, they're not getting me any work. They're not getting me any work. And she was just like, well, just wait, be patient, etc. And just, I was on the way back from one of the very few gigs I had, and a guy gave me a book. And I always remember, he then sent me some stuff, all for free. And he gave me a book called How to Be Brilliant by Michael Heppel. And it's okay, it's fine. It's pretty standard. It's a bit based on the kind of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People stuff by Stephen Covey, which I then read. And there wasn't anything that amazing in it, but I remember what it said was, look, if you want to succeed in something, you've got to be prepared to change, adapt, and be completely 100% responsible. So I was blaming agents, blaming this, and I thought, if I want to get work and I want to start getting somewhere, I have to be my own agent. I have to start calling people. I have to do the really uncomfortable stuff of going up to people and saying, look, this is what I do. And then I had to adapt, and I had to really look at and really plan, if things weren't working, why weren't they working? And I think that's a difficult thing to do because it kind of involves sitting with pens and paper and writing stuff out and looking at really seriously at where you want to get to. And of course, at the beginning, we don't know sometimes, so we have to kind of go with it and follow how we feel about stuff. Do we like this sort of magic? Do we like that sort of magic? And be honest. And I think a lot of the time I was being influenced by other people and following a path that I should, you should want to do this, but actually, what do I really want? So I picked up the phone and did the uncomfortable stuff of calling people and saying, I'm a magician, I do this. 99% of the time, they would say, sorry, we've got nothing for you. 1% of the time, you get one person that might say, okay, come along and show us what you do. And there's still people I know now from that time, and that was 20 years ago, that I still know now were the first people that gave me gigs, the first people who took a chance. And I didn't do that well, it took a long time. So I think that what a lot of us do is we do the practice, we sit and we work, and that's the comfortable bit because it's not scary. To sit with a deck of cards isn't scary. To make the odd video isn't scary. The really scary stuff for a lot of people is getting face to face, which is obviously very difficult at the moment, but we can do it in certain ways on Zoom, having difficult conversations and accepting that we might fail and get rejected, but that's part of the process.
Yeah, that's kind of true. But I think we all have to get started somehow, right? I mean, no matter what happens, there is always a beginning. That's how we get started. So talking about that, there are many magicians, like they don't know how to get shows continuously. Like I think that's what you said. We have to try, right? Because if we don't have an agent, we have to go out there and contacting people, right?
Yeah. Also, I think it's finding mentorship as well. So I found a couple of people in my life that were doing what I wanted to do. A guy called Peter Wardell. And when I was a street performer, he was someone who was a street performer, but also did professional magic gigs, was very skilled. So he kind of taught me. But I looked at him and I thought, right, well, that's kind of where I want to go. And we make a joke about it now because my life was kind of like his life, but 5 years before. Everything he did, I kind of did afterwards. But he was someone that I could see it was possible because I looked at him and thought, he's a very clever guy, but he's just like me. He's a human being. What's he doing right? And then and it's not a manipulative thing. You're not finding people specifically to do that. But if you surround yourself by the people who do what you want to do, that'll kind of go in the end. You start getting inspired as well. So I think that's a really big thing.
Yeah, that's true. And like talking about that, see, I'm just asking a question regarding magicians, okay? Because like I just want to know your perspective on that. So basically, what do you think that makes a magician successful? Is it the number of shows a magician get, or is it the fame they get, or is it the magic creations that they put out to the industry? What makes a person, a magician, successful?
Okay, right. Well, okay. So first of all, we have to define success, and it goes back to that thing I was saying. And this is another thing we get caught up in, and why people end up very unhappy. And I nearly did because I followed what I thought was going to be success. Right. So success for me was getting loads of gigs, loads of bookings. Right. That's success. Well, that started happening for me. I did a personal development course, which is now the same course that I teach, etc. And it completely made me go, right, I can do this. And I started getting a lot of gigs, a lot of bookings. And then after a while, I was really unhappy. Right? I remember just feeling really unhappy, and I was thinking, what's wrong here? I'm not. And then I sat down and I did what I said. Got the bits of paper, wrote down what's making me unhappy, where I want to get to, and I realised things had changed in my life. I'd had my first child. I wanted to be with my family. I was getting loads of gigs, which meant I was away every Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. I was still working a bit of street, so I was doing that. And I was, so the goal had changed, and I didn't know. Okay, so what I then wanted to do was maybe do a few less gigs, but start developing something where I can be at home more. So the card magic course came into it, and all that stuff. So I think success, you have to really dig deep and go, what do I want? Forget what other people say. Cause, in it, I don't know, but everybody here says, you should be on Britain's Got Talent, but you should be on Britain's Got Talent. It's like, well, I don't want to be that busy. It's kind of, if I did well, I don't want that because I would never see my family. So it's wrong of me to chase that thing. So I think we have to always check in on what we want. And I think your success is what you decide it is. It's not necessarily money. Of course, we need enough. I always say about money, enough of it makes us happy, but not enough of it makes us unhappy. But it's not going to be the answer. Okay, so we need enough, and we have to decide what that is. Decide what lifestyle we want to live. To me, my lifestyle in lockdown was actually nearly ideal. What I want to do is I want to be with my family, and I want to sit here and make videos and help people, whether it's on video or over Zoom. So that's kind of what I know that I want now. I don't want to be driving around the country. So I think you have to define success. And if you're chasing something that maybe even subconsciously you don't really want, that might be a problem. So, and I did it for years. I chased the gigs and I didn't really want them, So every time I got another gig, it was like, there was part of me that kind of went, oh man, I've got to go away again. So I think that is defining success. And be self-aware, understand what you're good at and what you're not good at. That's a hard thing for people when we're young, we feel like we're good at everything. We feel like we can do anything we want. I felt like that, I can do whatever. And actually there were some things that I couldn't do very well. I couldn't say no to people. So I was taking jobs that I didn't want. That's my big weakness is I want to say yes. I'm a people pleaser. So everybody says, we do this charity thing. And I go, yeah. And I end up doing like 10 charity gigs in a month and not doing the things I want to do. So I've had to really learn. So it's about building the skills you haven't got, I think, knowing yourself. And it takes time and it takes a lot of exploration and conversation and finding people to talk to about what you want and all that kind of stuff.
I believe success is measured in two different ways, in two different perspectives. For example, for the public, watching a person being successful is all depends upon the amount of money they get, the amount of shows they get and all. And for that person, maybe the self-happiness he get, that's what makes him successful in his mind.
Absolutely.
But in the eyes of public, it's all about like the number of shows, the stardom that person have, all that stuff. And so like what you said is exactly correct. I mean, being success is not measured by the number of shows that you get. It all depends upon the comfortability, doing the things that you love. And it is absolutely correct. Okay, so just randomly one question pops in my mind that, see, there might be like many magicians who are doing amazing, great contributions to the industry. And let's say that person is so young. And he's pulling out his full potential to contribute many things to the industry. And in the industry, performers around that region or performers in that industry started hating him because they are not expecting this kind of potential from this young person, because that comes with a lot of experience and a lot of years of experience and all. And they started hating that, and they started backbitching that person. They started blaming that person. and the whole industry started hating him, started talking about him badly, and that makes that person so weak. So in that kind of situation, how to deal with it?
How do you deal with the people talking badly of you?
Yeah. For, let's say, for in the magic industry, let's say I
Yeah,
am
yeah.
doing, let's say if I'm doing so many, contributing so many steps to the industry, and the entire industry just saying to me that I am not worth enough to do this kind of things, I don't
Yeah,
deserve to
yeah.
do this kind of things, and the entire industry is talking about me. So in that kind of situations, what to do?
Well, it's hard. It's hard, and this is my problem. Is that I get really affected by that. I don't. I get really hurt when people say, even if I get a comment on my channel. I mean, I'm better these days, but I'll get one comment, and I'll be like, and get really upset. So I think that, I was talking to Jason Ladani about this, the card magician, and he was talking about this really nicely, and he was saying you've got to understand what's happening here, right? So, and I think it's a good metaphor for this is parenting. Okay, so if you're a parent and all the parents gossip about the bad parents, oh, they let their kid do this, they let their kid have Nintendo Switch all day, they let the kid do it, and they do it because it makes them feel better about the things that they're not that good at. Okay, so what we tend to do is we'll look at we'll talk down about people to make ourselves feel a lot better about our own insecurities and what we do. So that, magic is all entertainment is a world full of ego. We, as a job, we go and we have to have quite high status. We're saying that we've got this, even not explicitly. We're not saying, a lot of us won't say we've got a magic power, but it's a very kind of egotistical thing you're doing. People are constantly telling you you're amazing. People are constantly telling you, so it makes us feel amazing. But so we feel great and we think, oh, we're really good at this. And then when we see someone get the success we start questioning ourselves. I think this isn't science. This is just my opinion. So to make ourselves feel better about those insecurities, we might see someone like Dynamo. The classic thing I hear about Dynamo is, well, he's not a natural performer, is he? He's not this. Dynamo's perfect for what he does for TV. If he was like ba 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 ba, it would be so, you couldn't watch that every week for half an hour. You need that conversational human touch that Dynamo has. So he's actually, but you hear a lot of slagging him off because it makes people feel better about the stuff they're not being successful about. And you are always going to get it if you're successful in any way. You've got to deal with it. And I think that what happens is, I mean, if you look, you've been working so hard doing these interviews. When you did your first ever one, I'm
My
not sure what
first,
you're like.
my first,
Yeah, did you
like
feel
you are asking
insecure?
about my first interview, right?
Yeah, so if you
Yeah,
did, when you did
it
your
was with
first one.
Michael Ammar. It was with Michael Ammar like 2 months before.
Okay, so and I don't know what you're, but me, when I did my first one, I was nervous. I was like, am I going to do it right? Am I going to be? I might be terrible at it. Am I going to ask the right questions? And that makes us feel like scared. So a lot of the time, we won't even do it because we're so scared that we have that fear of failure. So, but then we see someone else do it, and then we get the jealousy. We go, I could have done that, and now that guy's doing it. Okay, so I think that to alleviate that jealousy, we can then slag the person off and say, oh, they're terrible at interviewing. But the thing that stops people doing it is the fear of this. What if people don't like it? They comment, they tell me I'm terrible. And I think the key is to understand that most people won't do that. People that love you, people that matter, even if you don't do something well, will be there with you and understand. And the people that are those people, there's a lot of stuff going on there that if it's not you, it's going to be someone else. So for me, I just imagine that person. It's like Jason said, sitting in their room on their computer, feeling bitter, feeling twisted, feeling that they've got nothing better to do than, backstab you. But if you are successful, and some people, even if 10 people like what I do, then I'm successful. If I can connect with some people, and it's like I make these Facebook videos every day that are just talking about my life. I'm just kind of called Lockdown Without Meltdown. It's not a business thing. It's just a thing. Now, some people that I know very well don't like it. I know they don't. They think it's stupid, but that doesn't matter because for the couple of hundred people that watch it, they do. So it's kind of not trying to please everybody, I think, is a key.
Yeah, not trying to please everybody. That is the key. That's what you said, and that's exactly true. But like, I just have one doubt regarding that. I mean, let's say if the public in the from the public, few people are against you, but that's fine. Not pleasing everybody is the key. Yeah. But let's say this is the situation. Like, we have only two options. The situation is that the art you do, and for every art there is industry, right? For music industry is there,
Yeah, yeah.
magic industry is there. For, let's say, the what I do is magic, right? So in the magic industry, in the community itself, the leading performers are, let's say, against me, and like I know that what I do is correct, what I'm doing is right, I'm not doing anything wrong. So in that situation, if everybody is against me, should I continue with what I'm doing it, or should I convince them and become friendly with them? What, there are two options, right?
Yeah, of course. Well, it depends what the goal is. Okay, so a good example is when you see people that go down a very artistic sort of avant-garde surreal route, especially with things like juggling. Juggling's a good example because with jugglers, you've got the people doing the show that I did, which was a comedy show, people pleasing, everybody laughing, great. And then after time, sometimes jugglers go down a more kind of artistic route that maybe is a lot more niche. And what happens is a lot of juggling. Now, juggling's I think is a bit different than magic. You don't quite usually get that backstabbing thing that you get in magic as much. It's usually more accepting, but people will still say that's a bit weird. Why are you doing that? You did that really cool thing before that made us all laugh, and now you're doing something really surreal to music, and that juggler has to make a choice of what is more important to him. Is it more important that he does this show that storms it all the time and everybody laughs, or is it more important that he does his own thing and accepts that? And there's no right or wrong answer. I think it is okay to, follow a path that is more commercial because you want to maintain a living, you want to feed your family, or you can follow a thing that speaks to you and it's more important that you do something that is in line with your own creative drive. Now, both of them are equally valid. I generally don't think there's one better than the other. I have seen people take paths that are a lot more niche, and they'll just put up with the crap that they get off people, and maybe and if it doesn't bring in as much money, maybe they'll get a job a lot on the side. In answer to your question, I think it's about personal choice and it's about values. It's about what your values are. So if we work within our values, then we feel okay regardless of what the other people say. So, well, mostly. So if my values at the moment are supporting my family, that's a really important thing I have to do. So I haven't got a choice. If I want to go off on a really arty thing and explore that, actually sometimes I do want to do that, but I can't because it won't pay the bills. Okay, so my value is that first and foremost. Then secondly, it's about authenticity. So whatever I do has to be authentic to me. So I won't do something that just isn't me for money. It just doesn't work, and it isn't going to work long term. So if it fits, so then it's really important to look at our values. What's important to us, and if we know what's important to us, that can be our compass and tell us what the right thing to do is. So if all those people are saying, "Oh, what you're doing is terrible. You should be doing this," well, maybe you can look at that and go, "Well, how can I do that and still be in line with my values? How can I do a version of that?" So if someone says, I don't know, go on Britain's Got Talent and do an act that is very much you, I'd be like, okay, I could do that. If someone says, no, we've seen this thing and we want you to do that because it's just like him and that was successful, then I'd have to be like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. And I actually know people who that's happened to. And they've been asked to bend to somebody else's style and they just kind of go, it's just not going to work. It's not sustainable. So I think, again, it's personal choice, but it won't be sustainable if you're doing something that just isn't you. You've got to stay true to yourself a little bit. And I know it's a cliche, but you've got to know what that self is. What is it I want? Going back to what I said before, what is it I want to be? What do I want to do? And how will I do that I can do it for 25 years and still be me and still not lose touch? And depression comes in when, you look at the classic story of fame. People get famous, they love it for a bit, but then they're manipulated too much. They're taken down this route. They've got to do this. They've got to make this awful movie. They've got to, and you see people just deteriorate mentally because they've lost hold of what it is that they want to be. So I think if you're in line with what you want to be, then either of those things are completely fine. But you just got to make that choice, and you'll know because it'll just feel wrong if it's not the wrong choice.
That's really great words which you said, and it makes me think a lot. I mean, yeah. So let me ask you something. Like we all have two, as an artist, we all have two personalities, right? The personality we have in the personal life and the personality we have in the professional life. And there are
Yeah.
some are like having only one personality in both sides, in personal life and professional life. But mostly, like let's say 85 or 90% of the artists will be like they have a kind of personality in the personal life and they have
Yeah.
a different personality in the professional life. And how to deal in a certain kind of situation when something terribly happens in the personal life and that will lead you to affect in the professional life, even though professional life will be going so smoothly, even though it is going so
Yeah.
smoothly and like flawlessly it is going, but in some personal life some issues are happening, like let's say maybe unrequited love, friendship issues, or like money problem, things like that,
Yeah.
many personal steps, right? So how to deal with that kind of situations when things happen like that?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's like any skill. It's like learning how to do a one-handed shuffle, right? You can't do it at the beginning. You drop the cards, maybe for 6 months. You're doing that thing, and then it starts, and then you start getting better at it, and it starts. And I think it's a skill like that. To build resilience and to be able to do that, to be able to go, okay, this is happening here, but I need to do this on stage, is a skill that takes time. And I know that because I'm not good at that. One of my real weaknesses is being affected by my emotions, and my emotions affecting my actions a lot. So I remember years ago, and this would never happen now, but I had an argument. Me and my wife got divorced, but we had this argument, and I cancelled a gig. First time I've ever done it because I was just so wound up. I thought I can't go out and do the gig. I was so upset. That only happened once, and after that, I went, I can't do that because that's life. We have to. This was years when I first started performing, and then I compare that to the time when years later, when my wife and I divorced, and I took it really badly. I struggled with the divorce for about 6 months, a year. But I had to keep working, right? Because all of a sudden, I was only me bringing the money in. So I had two kids that I have half the time, shared care. So I can't not go to the gig. And I remember turning up I was doing weddings, celebrating weddings, and I was going through this thing, right? And I talked to another friend who had a similar thing. And I remember being at the wedding and just feeling beforehand, just in tears, literally in the car, just kind of, I can't do this. 20 minutes later, I'm having a great time, because it's actually therapeutic. But when you're in flow and you're performing, and I mean really performing, I don't mean just doing a trick. I mean, you get into a kind of character, and my performing character is me, but maybe the volume turned up a little bit. I don't mean louder, but just a bit more energy when I'm on form, and that actually was great. And the difference is I built that resilience through deciding to build that resilience, deciding to, still go out when I feel low, knowing that I can drive to a gig. Even now, I could go to a gig feeling really tired, but the minute I walk on stage, it's Dr. Theatre, Dr. Footlights, all right? You walk on and you feel whatever you feel like off stage, you feel better on stage. And it's trusting that. I think it's trusting that if you are performing, and I mean really putting your heart and soul into what you're doing, whether it's a card trick on a table at a wedding or anything, then that will overcome most things. But it takes a long time to trust that, and I think that comes with confidence, and it comes with repetition, and it comes with just to keep doing it. But it is hard. It's a hard thing to do. I think it's easier on stage because on stage you get the adrenaline, so you get that kick when you get on. And it's just amazing. You learn to, like, I've been doing this for a long time now. You go on and you can be 2 minutes in the dressing room yawning, just feeling so tired. And then the minute you go on and you get that, you're just in. And when you do that 500 times, you trust that. So you don't worry about it. But it's very, very hard. And sometimes, if things are really bad, maybe the choice is not to do the gig. It sounds awful, but if something traumatic has happened and you are experiencing trauma, then I think sometimes you've got to look after yourself. So if you're burning out doing gig and you're exhausted, then that's no good. So sometimes I think it's a valid thing to say, I'm really sorry, but I need to take 2 weeks off because there's traumatic things happen in my life, and I need to sort of work out where I want to be. And I think that's important. But there's a fine line between doing it and
Yeah.
not doing it.
Just from what you said just now, I just got a question that, see, if you are experiencing a very personal thing, which is not a big thing like traumatic experience, but kind of
Yeah.
like a silly matter. The reason might
Yeah.
be silly, but we are so affected by that person's feelings or emotions and we are
Yeah.
like lost. Okay, so if we feel like if you feel like okay, we should take a break from our passion, is it really necessary to take a break? Because from my point, I'm just asking is that maybe that person might be going so smoothly in his field, and he
Yeah.
is affected by someone else's feelings and emotion, and this person feel like he need to take a break. So is it really necessary to take a break?
And well, you only know, right? So we know. I think we know when it is something small that we've been affected by something. So it happens to me all the time. Like I say, this is interesting. So I do these Facebook Live every morning at 10. Maybe it's going to be a bit less than every morning now because it was to help people get through lockdown. And I said something, and someone commented, and I won't say who it was or what it was, but it was something that really, because I said something that was from a really pure giving place. It wasn't a selfish place. And someone commented, and they'd misunderstood what I said. And it really wound me up because it was someone I knew very well. It wasn't. So I thought, well, how can they think I would mean that, And because of that, I nearly didn't do a video the next day. I kind of went, oh, I'm not going to, But then you sit down and well, the first thing is you wait until the emotions die down a bit because our first response to something when something like that happens is to then make a decision. You should never make a decision 3 minutes after the things happen because you're feeling, our brains don't work properly when we're stressed. So we can't make rational decisions when we're experiencing a high level of stress. So the first thing is we have to wait until we're in a space where we're not quite as stressed to make that decision. It's like, you never write a text message or put a status update when you're drunk or make a video and put it on Facebook. Just don't, because it's not going to be a rational representation of you. So that's the first thing. Wait and get yourself into a less stressed situation before you make a decision. But I think we do know when it's something, or we can learn when it's something that isn't as catastrophic as we may think. So it could be that a big one for me is if I go to the doctor and the doctor says, oh, we don't know what that is, we're going to have to do some tests. I'm in a mess, because I'm a hypochondriac. I think I'm dying. So my initial reaction is to cancel everything. I'm running away because at that time I go, and this happened a couple of months ago. But then I sat down, I did the work, I reflected, I kind of got, mindfulness, whatever it takes for you to get to a more natural space and then make the decision. So I think that when it's not traumatic, when you can actually look at, okay, what's happened? This person said a bad thing about me online. It's really stressful. It's really upset me. But if I actually look at it and maybe even write about it, journal about it and go, it's nothing. So that puts you in a better space to go for it. So I think there has to be some work. And I think at the beginning of your journey as a performer, that's probably one of the things you have to overcome is whether it's someone saying something bad to you or whether it's doing a show that doesn't work, whether you go on stage and you die. The classic thing is I saw it with stand-up comedy. I did stand-up for about a year and I did okay. I wasn't that great, but I saw people try once and then if it didn't work, just give up. And you go, no. The process is you fail, you fail, you fail, you fail. You then get used to failing, then you relax, and then you start succeeding for most people. Because when you get used to failing, it then doesn't worry you as much. And that's where the good stuff starts happening. And so I think that it's that awareness of how, yes, is it a traumatic experience or is it something that you're just finding hard to deal with? If it's proper trauma, someone has died, that you have to take time off because you're suffering from depression, etc. That's a very different thing from an emotional response to someone annoying you, or so you have to make that, and maybe get help if you can't make that decision. Maybe get some coaching, maybe get some counseling, someone to help you through that.
Yeah, I got it. And I just got a question in my mind now, and it's kind of like a hard question. But I think before I ask the question, I do agree with the fact that this thing depends upon one person's emotional stability. And the question I'm going to ask is depends upon one person's emotional strength, because everyone is having different personality. Everyone's response to certain kind of situations and how they deal with it is kind of entirely different. So the question I'm going to ask now is that, see, the greatest power we have to master is mastering the art of detachment. I mean, what the detachment I mean is that, being close to everything. being, so much
Yeah,
close to
yeah,
everything, and
detachment.
not letting it on and affect you.
Yeah,
Okay, so we are being close to everything, but certain kind of emotions of a person or feelings of a person doesn't affect us. So this is the thing. Like, we know that our weakness is if we get too close to that certain kind of person's feeling, or if we get too close to that kind of person's, we get affected or we get infected
yeah,
emotionally.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But to master the art of detachment, we have to get close to everything and not letting it on and affect you. So
Yeah.
how to that's what I
I
was
know what
asking.
you
Like
mean.
that's kind of like hard thing. Like how to deal with that.
Yeah, well, the first thing is it's different. It is different for a lot of people. People deal differently with it. So detachment. What we can't do is ignore our emotions. We can't pretend they're not there because it'll come up somewhere. All right. So if say something happens, the classic thing is something traumatic happens and we bury it. Right. We bury it and we just, well, I'm not going to deal with it, and that works for a bit, and then all of a sudden one day it starts popping up. And we start
Yeah.
getting that manifestation of that stress. So we have to accept it. So the first thing is we can't be detachment is very important. We have to detach ourselves to be able to logically see what's going on, which is very hard to do when we're feeling it. We're in it and we're kind of like, so I think part of it is knowing that is observing ourselves, observing how we're responding. And there's this great book called The Untethered Soul. Okay, well, it's great. Most of it's great, and it talks about how our true self is the self that observes what's going on to us. So if in our lives we have trauma, there's part of us that's observing that, knowing it's happening. I'm feeling like this. It's that voice in our heads that says, I'm feeling upset, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling stressed. What is that voice? And there's a theory that's the real self, and all that stuff happening to us is is kind of transient. It's what we observe. So we have to detach ourselves and be the observer of that. And the better we get at that, so we go, okay, well, I've broken my arm. I'm experiencing pain. We still experience the pain, but we observe that pain and we learn to deal with it. And part of, I think, the practice is to accept it, but know what it is and know that that emotion isn't us. It's something that's happening to us. So if we can then go, okay, well, this thing's happening to me. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it's difficult. And I'm not detaching myself from it because I'm seeing it, but I'm detaching myself enough to know that it's not me. That emotion isn't me. It's what's happening to me. Me is just, whatever happens in the next 3 hours, I'm still me at the end of it. There's still that observer looking at it. And it sounds really heavy, but when we learn to know that, or we learn to deal with the fact that whatever happens to us, we are still ourselves. We're still okay, unless it's a life-threatening thing, etc. But then the more time we put into practicing that skill, the better we get at it. So, and then we make decisions of whether we need to change our actions based on that. Actually, this is happening too often. Do I need to work on this? Do I need to actually spend time building this resilience? Because it's okay to feel upset. It's okay to feel stressed. But if it starts affecting our lives, if it starts making us quit the gigs, it's like alcohol, right? We alcohol affects us, and that's fine. But if it starts affecting all the different bits of our lives, then we have to do something about it. So with stress, it's the same. We need a bit of stress. We have a bit of stress. A bit of stress is life. Those emotional responses are part of life. But if they're starting to affect all the different aspects of our lives, then I think we have to sit down and do some work. Now, that work may come in just practicing dealing with it. It may come, like I said, with coaching, counseling, discussing with friends, journaling, all those things, mindfulness, yoga, exercise. They're all the things, they're actions we can do to start changing our emotional responses. And I would say one of the best things I started doing, I think, for dealing with my own emotional responses is to do the things that I didn't know would help. So I never used to run or cycle or do any of that stuff. Mindfulness, yoga, none. That was just not part of my life. And then in the course that I did, said if you're feeling stressed or upset about anything, maybe try not to think yourself out of it. It may be that you just have to do something to alleviate that. So for me, going run, if I'm feeling that stress of whatever, someone commenting on YouTube or a relationship issue, if I take myself out of the situation, go for a run, let the thoughts settle, let it all starts feeling a bit better, the endorphins. So then I come back to it. So it may be that doing unexpected things. You know what really helps me as well? This is a really ridiculous thing. Cardistry, right? Right. I'm terrible at it, but I love it. I'm learning it again. And most people say cardistry is terrible. It's juggling. It's not magic. I don't care what it is. If I sit with a deck of cards and a Dan and Dave Buck DVD with the most complex flourish on it, and I spend 2 hours trying to learn it, I don't think of anything else other than that thing. All right, it's the perfect flow experience, and it's the same as, you know, when you if you play a video game and you're on a boss battle, all right, and you're dealing with a boss, and you start attacking the boss, and you have no idea how to kill the boss, all right. And I remember back in the late 90s, I was playing Tomb Raider on the PlayStation 1, and I spent 9 hours trying to kill a dragon, a boss. For that night, now don't get me wrong, I'm not recommending that. My world was very different then. But for that 9 hours, I thought of nothing else. You know, I was just in the moment. Now that isn't healthy. Nobody wants to do that for 9 hours. But I would say find something for a couple of hours that just gets you into a thing, whatever it is for you. It could be practicing a second deal. You know, I get the same from that kind of practice. And then come back to what you're doing, and you may feel that you've just by taking a break from that thing, you go into it with a different. So, I mean, I suppose what I'm trying to say is there'll be unexpected benefits from doing things you wouldn't expect would help, and finding flow. And flow is that thing where you do something where you don't think of what time it is, where you forget everything. You know, you're in that flow place. You're challenged enough that draws you in so much, which I think why many of us get into magic. We love that practice. We love that sleight of hand practice, that challenge. Make sure you've got that in your life, you know, to level out all the stress stuff, because that for me is such a helpful, and it could be running, it could be something different, but yeah.
You know, thank you for explaining it so beautifully.
Oh, I hope it did. I hope it made sense.
Yeah,
I tend to go off and ramble.
yeah, you know, like I believe one of the greatest quality of a counselor or a coach is to explain things so elaborately, even if it can be explained in a simple sentence. That's a quality a counselor should have, I believe, because if one person is saying a problem and you are like, oh, I'm so sad, it's gonna be okay. I mean, we have to take next time. It's gonna be okay. That will not heal their wound. I mean,
No. Yeah.
we have to, you know, the matter might be this. Okay, we have to spend some time. This might be the matter. I mean, the matter should be small, but you have to explain a lot to get so much knowledge and so much, you know, energy, positive energy to that person, and you have that quality, and it's really nice to experience this through this video call. Yeah, I don't know why I am repeatedly asking you questions. You know, I know the answer because it depends upon the person's need. It depends upon say person's comfortability. But again, I'm going to ask you one little question. That's also going to be like a tough thing because I know the fact that it really depends upon the person's like comfortability or their needs. My question is it necessary to have love in our life? I mean, like love in the sense, you know, getting love from our mother is kind of a love. Getting love
Yeah.
from our siblings is a kind of love. You know, putting it so much effort to our passion is a kind of a love. I'm not meaning that kind of love. I mean a life partner, let's say. Okay, that's what I
Yeah.
meant. So basically, if you are a kind of a person who is, you know, who is so happy and going so smoothly without a life partner in the life, and if we consider ourselves as successful and going so smoothly in the life, is it really necessary to have a life partner?
Yeah. Okay. Well, all right. So this is very interesting,
Yeah.
because you say that the love, the friendship love, and is different to that. Actually, I think I don't think it is. I think it's same in a lot of ways. Right. A couple of the question: do we need I love in our lives? I absolutely think we do, but it doesn't have to be from a partner. I think we need it from our friends. I need it. We need it from our peers. I think we need it from, and I think that's why some people struggle so much when we see all this backstabbing in the music, the magic industry, because I think we have to show each other a kind of love. Now it sounds very, but we have to show each other a respect and an understanding and an empathy, and you know. How much better would it be, you know, if someone put a video on Facebook and it wasn't very good, that everybody just empathized and supported that person? And don't get me wrong, it does happen sometimes, but a lot of the time we go, oh, that was terrible. You exposed that, you know, you did that move really badly. And without that, it would, A, it would be a better world, and B, it would just be more productive. But going back to your thing, so I think that we do. I think that kind of universal love that we should show each other is very important. I think it would completely change the world if we all did it, rather than, you know, from magic tricks to politics to everything. You know, so there's that. Do we need the love of a partner? Well, no. I think it helps. It can help, especially when other things come into play. So when I was younger, I could sit for 5 hours a day with card college. I can't do that now because I have stuff. I have the practicalities of just kind of trying to run life on my own. Now I've just separated from my a partner again after 3 years. It's very friendly. It's fine. It's very amicable. It's wonderful, and that's fine. But I'm now facing that thing of, okay, now I'm not going to have that person there. Does it mean I won't be able to do my stuff? No. Does it mean I won't be able to love what I do? No. Does it mean I can't do it? No. So I can still do it. So that's fine. Would it be a lot easier if there was someone there? When you get back from the gig and there's someone there, when you have struggled working on something and there's someone there to talk to, yeah, it would. But that can be drawn from friendship as well, from talking to the people that we love. And I don't mean they're people that we just know. I mean, they're people that we have connection with. And that's, so in a way, it is a similar sort of love. Yes, it's not that kind of romanticized love that we get when we go through the honeymoon period, when we get that feeling. Actually, that can destroy it because all you want to do is be with that person and your work goes out the window. So we can have that. So I think we need love in our lives. I think we can be single and get a version of that. And if you think about it, a similar thing happens in friendship. When you meet someone, we've had that thing when we meet someone not in a platonic level of a magic convention or something, and we just get on with that person so well. You've had that thing when you're just talking and it's just like your best friends after 2 minutes. I've met people like that. And it's a similar thing. Yes, there's not the kind of attraction or anything like that, but you really love hanging out with that person. So, that can be so beneficial for us when we are undertaking challenges, when we are dealing with dying. I have a friend called Matt who lives in Norway, who's not a magician. He used to be a street performer, and now I do leadership and management work with him and his team, and we reconnected after years. Now, we're really close friends, and we love each other dearly. I don't fancy him. I'm not. We're both heterosexual men, and there's none of that. But we love each other. We talk to each other most days. We help each other through crisis, and and we bicker and argue, and it's a very lovely relationship. It's a very different thing than me and a partner and a girlfriend, but it's very important to me. And without that, things would be difficult. He helps me when I'm struggling with my kids. When I need advice, he's there for me. And without that, I think I need things. I think we need things like that. And I would say if you haven't got that level of friendship in your life, then when we're very young, we get that from our parents, hopefully, or from our mentors, or sometimes from our teachers. We get that we feel someone's got our back. And I think that's it. I think you need to know that someone's got your back, that whatever those people say online, you've got someone that will listen to you, importantly, not just give you advice, but listen to you and be there for you. And for years, I didn't have that because I dedicated so much to my family that I kind of I burnt a lot of bridges with friends. And again, when you have family with your wife, all that, even if it's going well, you get so busy, you sometimes just don't have a chance to have those conversations. So again, even if you've got a partner, you still may need that outlet. And that might be a magic club. It may be whatever, but I think we need that connection with others to help us through whatever challenges we're dealing with. It's a long answer, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's fine. I was actually wondering, how did you get into this kind of field? I mean, from magic to this being a coach, personal development coach. How did you evolve yourself as a personal development coach?
So what happened is I long story short, I moved to the north of England and I wanted to become a magician and stop street performing. I was probably quite a lazy person, and I wasn't lazy in the way that I was happily, I died really badly on street performing for 4 years. I couldn't do it very well. I was losing my audiences. So I wasn't lazy in that respect. I was quite resilient, but in other ways I didn't want to work much. I couldn't imagine working more than a couple of hours a day. And I wanted to learn to run a business. And I met a guy called Richard who I didn't know at the time, ran a leadership course, a 10-day massive leadership course, so 2 days a month for 10 days. And it was maybe £2,500 to go on this course. I didn't know any of this, but I knew he was good in business. I read an article on him and I said to him, I'll do a swap. I'll teach you magic, because he was an amateur magician. He was learning magic. And you just give me some business advice. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to run a business. Nothing. So he said, oh, well, okay. He said, you teach me magic and I'll put you on my course. And I didn't know anything about it. And he said, it's leadership. And I was like, well, I don't lead anyone. It's just me. And that course changed my life because it was all that stuff. It was all about how to sit there and work out what you want and mindset and, how to communicate more effectively. And that was a complete game changer. I sat there and I thought, what's this nonsense? And within 3 hours, I was like, this is incredible. All the stuff about thoughts, emotions, actions, how to change it, all that stuff. And after that 10 days, I came out of that as a completely different person. No, I wasn't a different person. I was still me, but I just had this belief, this self-belief, understood it could be done, that successful people weren't special. They were just people that had decided to take the challenge and do the thing. And so that was the process. And then after I did the course, they kept asking me to go back in and maybe do a magic trick for, as the last day for a treat for the people on the future courses, and interview me about my journey and how it had helped me, the course. And then after I got to know them a lot better, and then they said, do you want to come in and be a presenter because we're thinking of retiring at some point? And they trained me up. So that was the first. And then I went back to university and did a year of a master's doing business coaching. So that was the kind of, and again, like I said to you before, I don't want to be doing 10 gigs, 20 gigs a month. It doesn't fit in with the lifestyle I want to live. So, but that does, to do maybe 4 or 5 gigs a month and a bit of leadership training in the week when my kids are at school, all that, it kind of fits in with the lifestyle I want. So that was the kind of journey. And then over years, I started running my own stuff, doing my own research and creating my own programs.
That's crazy. I mean, literally, journey you had till now. I mean, that's just beautiful. And what you do is actually great. I mean, like magic is kind of like a different thing which serves people in different ways. Like, giving a moment of happiness, giving a moment of astonishment,
Yeah.
making them think, how did you do that? I mean, more than just being wow, making them go in a different dimension, right? That's
Yeah.
what magic is. But this kind of personal development thing is kind of like entirely different, because if a person is really stressed out and if a person is mentally down and if they watch your video, see, I believe that if we have to be mentally okay, if we have to be like mentally fine, no one really does help. I mean, no one's words gonna help. I mean, they can influence you, but it's who we have to decide that we have to be okay. Because for let's say an example, you motivated me to in certain kind of way, and no matter how much you motivated me, if I really listens to you and if I decide in my mind that okay, I will do this, then only I will be okay. If in my mind I am like, I'm not going to listen to this man, then I'm not going to be okay, right? So that's my point. And in this kind of thing, it's kind of like a hard. I mean, even though you might be having some personal issues, but you are not neglecting all the stuff, and you are out there on Facebook putting videos and helping other people, especially in this lockdown time, which makes people sick and depressed and mentally ill.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so you are doing a great thing, man. I really appreciate you for what you are doing.
Thank you. And it helps me as well. I think that we forget how therapeutic it is to give, and it sounds a bit romantic or whatever, but to I think I'm 40. I was 47. Oh god, I have to think about that. I was 47 2 days ago, right? So
belated happy birthday.
Thank you. I think what happens, and people said this to me when I was younger, that you start understanding that there is something bigger than you. Now, that might come in religion, it goes anything, but you start really understanding it. I mean, you might be religious for all your life, but that real feeling of it's not all about me. So sometimes I think when we're younger, we live a really selfish life, and that's not a bad thing. That's part of the process. We're trying to find ourselves and we build ourselves. And then I think you get to a point where you go, that isn't satisfying me. And to help other people, whether it's by performing magic, and the same thing happened with magic. It stopped being about my ego. And don't get me wrong, there's still a bit of that. Of course, I love it when everybody thinks it's great, but that's kind of shallow. The real joy is in what they experience. And that's what feeds me. It's kind of and it's nice that I've provided that, but to know that that's happened and people have had an experience and they'll talk about it months later, like we all have heard that thing with magic. You did this trick 3 years ago and I still remember it. That's a beautiful thing. And I think that you make that decision. For me, the older I get, it's like it has to be a giving thing. It's a two-way thing. You give and you get. So with things like the card course, it's seeing that people are developing their magic and helping is a big part of what feeds me now. What feeds my soul in a way that. And I think that I always think if anything happened to me now, what would I want my legacy to be? It's like the classic thing from Seven Habits of Highly Effective People is, begin with the end in mind. If someone was to read out, a friend was to read out something at your funeral, what would you want them to say? Would you want them to say you were someone who just went around life selfishly trying to fulfill these little objectives? Or would you like them to say, yeah, Steve was this person that helped me do this? And actually, I was thinking, that's kind of what I'd want. And maybe there's a little bit of ego in that as well. I don't know. But I think that, and what you're saying is you're giving people the tools. You're not advising people. You're not telling them what to do. You're giving them the tools to grow themselves. And that's what coaching's about. It's not about advice. It's about, okay, let's sit with you maybe for hours and hours, not in one go, and really explore what's going on for you now. And the only way we can do that is by you finding it. It's like you said, you have to find it in yourself. Now, there are tools to help you with that, but I can't say what's the best thing for you. And you might not even know it, but the way you find out about it is that you explore it. And we do that through conversation. And we do it, even conversations like this, it's a great way to really sort of unpick what's going on for us. Because if it's all in our heads, it slows down, it slows us down.
Yeah, and one of the beautiful thing on the earth is that being able to get a person who listens to our problem. I mean, that's one of the beautiful thing, right? And that's what you're doing it. That's really great. Yeah.
Thank you.
So actually, I will ask one more question about life, not magic. I will just ask one more question about life, and we can end up the session. I mean, cool. You need to go, right? You need to take care of your children also, right?
Yeah. I'm okay yeah. I'm not in a major rush, but I'm getting back there for in about maybe half an hour.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So I'll just ask one more question. This is kind of like a tough thing. It's about life, okay? It's not about magic. So let's say here is a situation. One person loves a girl so much, okay, and they are very very close friends, very close friends. But that girl doesn't love him back as a boyfriend. That girl loves him back as a best friend, more than best friend. But that girl doesn't love him the way he wants. So what happens is he started to putting out distance with that girl, and that makes her sick. That makes her depressed, and she used to daily call to this guy and started crying that why you are doing this to me. I mean, I have to be close to you. When you keep distance to me, it makes me hurt. And that boy is asking like, okay, then why don't you have feelings for me? He said, I don't know, but I cannot see you the way you want. And for his safety, he need to put distance, because if he is being close to her, that will make him so sick. That will make him depressed because he loves her so much. But she can't put distance with him as well. So in the perspective of that boy, how can he manage that situation?
So the first thing is, and I'm not a relationship counselor. There is no answer. This is going to be a very disappointing answer, because okay. So the different ways of looking at this, and I think we can use that as a metaphor for a lot of things. Actually, it's about how much do we look after ourselves at the expense of other people? How much do we understand it's between us and them? Because and when is it okay to be selfish and actually say, do you know what, this is about me? So the first thing to say is the two things are, you have to have open communication and honesty, and you do have to look after yourself. So it's, the classic metaphor is on the aeroplane when they say, if the oxygen mask come down, you have to put yours on before you look after the kids. All right. Now, what you'll want to do is, some people is put theirs on first, but then if something happens to you, they're screwed. All right. So I know it's a depressing thing to think about. So you have to make sure you can breathe, and then you can help them. And that in any situation where you are struggling and you are suffering, you have to make sure you're okay. It sounds very selfish, but if you're not, especially if you've got kids and things like that, they're going to suffer, or the people around you are going to suffer. That doesn't mean you have to get to that place through being malicious or ruthless or Now, sometimes you may, if that person is so. A good example is when you're dealing with narcissistic people who are damaging you. You know, it might be a relationship and someone is actually damaging your mental health. You may have to be ruthless and just say, you know what, I have to not worry about how you are now. This is about me because I'm struggling, or in abusive relationships and things like that. There's a real, you know, some people will still not leave that person who's abusing them because they're worried about how they feel. There's all that weird paradox stuff that goes on. So at some point you do, I think, have to sometimes do that. But most of the time, I think it comes through authentic communication. So to have the strength to sit with that person and say, this is what I need to do. This is, you know, this is going to hurt. It's going to be unpleasant. And actually, a good example is when someone does have to end a relationship. You know, that person might be in pain. When my wife ended our marriage, I was in a lot of pain, but not once did I think she did the wrong thing, because it was the right thing to do. There's no point in being in any relationship that doesn't work. So, and it may be a friendship that a friend is damaging you and wanting too much from you, that's affecting your, you know, we see that quite a lot, affecting your life because they're just so needy. They need all the time. So sometimes we have to say, no, I have to separate from this situation, whatever the relationship is, but, you know, I love you, I respect you, but I just have to do this now. And that conversation can be done in a way with proper communication, with empathy, with understanding, but the outcome is still the same. And someone said to me quite recently that I said to her, we were talking about empathy, and I said, but how do you empathize and have compassion for people that are damaging you? And she said, well, you can have compassion, but it doesn't mean you have to accept it or be part of it or be with them. You can try and understand them, detach yourself to a point where you may understand what they're going through and why they're being how they are, but be honest about whether you can or cannot be part of that person's life. So I think we can get to it. Yes, it's still going to hurt, but authentic, honest communication, you know, explaining to that person with respect. And Stephen Covey talks about courage and consideration. It's having the courage to have the difficult conversations, but the consideration that that person is still a human being with feelings that deserves your respect, regardless of whether you're trying to get away from them or not. You know, so I think there's a way of doing it that's very difficult, very challenging, and sometimes it is easier just to get in the car and drive away. But you got to live with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's even though like you said, you're not a relationship counselor, but you said it like in a very good way. You explained it in a very good way. Yeah.
Yeah. Relationships are a good metaphor for everything. You know, you can. It's the biggest challenge in our lives is the relationships, the family. That's the biggest challenge. You know, for most of us, I think, how we
Yeah,
deal,
nothing else. That's
how we
because
do that.
yeah, because not everyone can run a to maintain a relationship, even with a friend or even with the family or with the parents, whatever. Moving along with in a healthy way, that's kind of like challenging, right?
Yeah, I think so. And actually, the most of our challenges that will affect, you know, it does go back to magic and performing and what we do. Most of the things that the hardest challenges in our lives will be relationships, the loss of relationships, new relationships, you know, struggling with relationships. And that will bleed into how we perform, how we work, how we manage ourselves. So it is all connected. I think that you know, to kind of go, this is magic and this is relationships and this is life. They're all connected and they all influence each other. So I think that it's important that we do, as magicians, talk about this stuff. We talk about the stuff that affects how we go forward and learn, because we're doing something that's very challenging. You know, learning magic. Well, if you're the sort of magician that wants to learn and develop constantly as a magician, it's not easy. It's a hard thing to do, and it's a lot harder if we're not level and relaxed or happy in our lives. So I do think we have to think about both things.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So, yeah, anyway, like I think I have troubled you with some other questions, right?
Not at all, Matt. No, it's a pleasure. Absolute pleasure. No, I'd rather talk about that than second deals.
Yeah, okay. So, so anyway, with that said, I think this our interview session will help lot of people, not in terms of magic, but in terms of life. It will help many magicians' personal life, I believe.
I hope so.
So, yeah, I believe that. I mean, yeah. So with that said, thanks a lot for giving some precious time of yours to the interview. And I really appreciate that what you are doing right now in this lockdown period. And keep doing, not only in lockdown, even after lockdown finishes, keep doing what you are doing. And love from India. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, and good work you're doing. You're working so hard, so well done, Barrett. It's
Thank you,
you are.
thank you,
I've seen how hard you're working. So amazing stuff. Yeah, yeah.
thank you, thank you.